Hello, welcome to Raymond Castile's Basement of Horror. I'm continuing with my Mego action figure reviews. We are reviewing the new Mego monsters that have been released over the last 3 or 4 months. And I'm focusing on some of the latest releases. And so let's, without further ado, because this is an exciting one. Now this is the one I was most excited about. Let's just get him on camera right away. The Hammer Dracula. Christopher Lee as Dracula. There he is. Look at that. Did you ever think you would see the day a licensed Christopher Lee Hammer Dracula? I'm curious about the, and I just saw him for the very first time a few seconds before I recorded this. So I'm seeing this in person for the first time. I want to see what kind of rights do we have here. Hammer Films Legacy Limited. So there's no Christopher Lee estate license, which is interesting to note because there's always been an issue with Hammer Films. There's never been a series of licensed Hammer Films monster toys. There was a one-off 1/6 scale Hammer Dracula figure. I don't know if it was 12 inches or 14. It wasn't 14. I think it might have been, though, a little taller than 12. I'm not sure. But it was basically 1/6, G.I. Joe type scale. It was a Christopher Lee Hammer Dracula, and it was licensed through Hammer, but not Christopher Lee. It had Christopher Lee's face, but I remember at the time, I don't know, this is like early 2000s. I don't know if this was, I don't know whose quote this was, but what I read was Christopher Lee did not authorize it, but however, he communicated to them, whether verbally or through his agent or whatever, that he was fine with it as long as they didn't use his name. He wasn't giving it his blessing exactly, but he wasn't going to oppose it as long as they didn't use his name. So he wasn't granting a license to make a Christopher Lee Dracula. He just wasn't going to stand in the way or take any action or anything as long as they didn't put his name on the package. So they licensed it through Hammer Studios, which, even though they don't, well, I was going to say they don't make movies anymore. They do. In fact, they've made a few good movies in recent years, but they're not the force they were in the 50s, 60s, 70s. But the company has stayed alive as a legal entity all this time and got back into making movies about a decade ago. They haven't taken the world by storm, but they had a hit with The Lady in Black, The Woman in Black, The Woman in Black. I don't remember. But that was a hit movie. I think it was The Woman in Black. I'm not sure. But anyway, it was a hit movie, very well received, and I thought that was going to be like a new era of new Hammer films, and that didn't happen. They made a few other movies, and some fairly well regarded, but nothing that's made money like that one did, and that's too bad. I don't count them out yet. I mean, they were going to remake the Hammer Abominable Snowman, which I kind of got excited about. I don't really like remakes, but I thought, a new Abominable Snowman with under the Hammer name if it was done seriously and it wasn't a CGI fest, but it was a gothic horror science fiction drama like the original, that could be really good, because I'd love to see a really good, serious Yeti movie. So I was kind of excited, but it didn't happen. Could still happen, I guess, but it hasn't happened yet. And that's fine. We got the original with Peter Cushing. I've got that on Blu-ray. Certainly one of my favorite cryptid movies. I mean, I guess my favorite was probably Legend of Boggy Creek, but the Hammer Abominable Snowman is up there. It's probably number 2. But I grew up, of course, watching Hammer horror movies on TV. And some of the first movies I ever saw were Hammer movies. I remember watching Dracula, Prince of Darkness on the CBS late movie. And that might have been the first Hammer film I ever saw. I don't know how old I was. My gosh, 4 or 5 years old probably. But I remember that. And then from there I saw most of the major Hammer horror movies growing up. And then in the 90s, or like late 90s, early 2000s, when they were putting out all the DVDs, I bought all those DVDs and saw all those. And then more recently I've been buying many of the Blu-rays, not every one, but many of the Blu-rays for my favorite Hammer films. So I would love to have had licensed Hammer toys as a kid. Well, but I say that, but as a kid I probably wouldn't have, because I always thought as a kid, I thought the Mego Mad Monsters were Hammer monsters. And at that time, I was a Universal snob. And I'm talking like 5 years old, 5 or 6 years old. I was already a Universal snob. And I was like, oh, those are Hammer, the Mad Monsters. I don't want that. I want Universal. I want the Azrac Hamway figures. Which I had all the Azrac Hamway figures. I never had a Mego Mad Monster. I remember seeing them in the stores, but I thought they were Hammer. And I was like, oh, no, that's Hammer. No. But I don't know what's going on, because I loved watching the Hammer movies when they were on TV. I have lots of memories of watching Hammer films on television and being very excited about it, and liking Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. Seeing the Dracula and Frankenstein movies and the werewolf, and definitely the Abominable Snowman. I loved that movie as a kid. But I don't know then why I didn't want Hammer toys. I don't know what my thinking was. But anyway, as an adult collector, I surely would have loved Hammer action figures, but they didn't exist, because there's always been this issue with the rights, because all the movies were distributed by different companies. You had Universal distributed some, Warner Brothers distributed some, I think Paramount did, maybe Columbia, I don't know. Different companies distributed these different films. And so because of that, there are merchandising encumbrances for all these different things. So it's hard to, in the US at least, it's hard to put out Hammer product without having complications with all these different studios. And then you've got the actors when they were alive, like Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee didn't really like merchandising themselves, although Lee finally warmed up to it for Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. But before that, he wasn't too keen on it. But it wasn't just them, it was other actors. You had actor issues, actor licensing issues, you had studio licensing issues. And then it's taken a while for Hammer, the company, to try to clean up that mess, to be able to present a licensing package to say, hey, come license our stuff because we have this available. So I assume they finally have worked it all out and they're able to do this. But it's interesting that there's no Christopher Lee name on this package. So, I'm wondering, what does this say here? I thought I was looking at some other fine print. I thought, well, wait a minute. Is there? No, there isn't. There's no mention of Christopher Lee on here, so I'm wondering if that's still in effect. He's passed away now, but is that still a thing where you can't use his name? I don't know. There were some busts of Christopher Lee as Dracula and Peter Cushing as Van Helsing that were in mainstream stores. I think I saw them in Toys R Us some years ago. They were busts. They were not just 10 shoulders, but down the torso a little bit, and they had arms, but they didn't have legs. So Dracula was kind of like that, and Christopher Lee's Dracula and Peter Cushing's Van Helsing, I think, was making a crucifix out of candlestick holders. And I think, as my memory, I don't own them, but I remember them. So they were able to do those, and there have been some masks. Like I know Trick or Treat Studios has some licensed Hammer masks right now, and then Hammer itself, the company, the studio, had some masks that they, I guess, commissioned or whatever, because they were selling them through their website, the Hammer Studios website, and that was many years ago. So there's been some merchandising, but there's never been action figures, like a set, like Frankenstein, Dracula, Werewolf, etc. Because it's just been this maze of licensing problems and conflicting who owns what, who can authorize what, and these different studios don't want their different properties together, even though they're all Hammer. They don't see it that way. Universal sees their Hammer films as Universal films, and Warner Brothers sees their Hammer films as Warner Brothers films. And they don't want them all just jumbled together into one set, even though that's how they should be, because they're all Hammer films. But back in the past, Aurora could have all these different characters, different monster characters all together, even though we're different studios. Mego could do these different superheroes, Marvel and DC and other things, and put them all together. You don't see that anymore. Well, rarely. What Mego's done to kind of get around that is they don't have for a lot of all these things are kind of like one-offs. They don't have a brand, but they do kind of, because right there, Mego Monsters, so they do sort of. And I think the Universal monsters have that same thing. So all the monsters, so they do kind of have a overarching banner, because it's right there. So that's something Mego's been able to do in the past, and they're able to do it now, to get all these different licenses and put them all together. Most companies can't do that because the studios don't want their licenses mixed with other studios' licenses. So it's always been a nightmare trying to license Hammer, all these problems. But, Mego has, I guess, cut through all that red tape, and here it is. Are we going to see more Hammer Megos? They say we are. But their recent announcements haven't included any. They say there's more coming up soon, but they've shown Universal ones. So that's like having Marvel and DC at the same time, which Mego had in the 70s. Now Mego has Universal and Hammer. That's a big deal to have those two studios together like that, because you've never seen that before. This is poster art on the back. Movie poster art. And this is, I don't know where they got that, probably stock art, but like a haunted forest. Again, I was talking about the Red Death being very Lincoln-esque. And this is extremely Lincoln-esque. I should have got the Lincoln Dracula to show you. I didn't think of that. But it's got a coffin behind it, like this does. And a lot of the Lincolns have like a forest or something on the side. The Lincolns always have their environment that the monster lives in on the card, and that's kind of the approach Mego's been taking with their recent monsters. They're doing this Lincoln style card art, and I don't know, is that a conscious thing? Where did that come from? Did someone say, let's do it like Lincoln? Or did it just kind of evolve like that, and the fans picked up on it and said, oh, that's like Lincoln, and then Mego said, oh, yeah, we meant to do that. I don't know. Now, he's got a beautiful costume, because most of the images I've seen online, his cape kind of covers it up or something. This is the first time I've really gotten a good look at his costume, and it's really nice. Let me get a better look at him. So it's a really good Christopher Lee likeness, and given the fact it's 8 inches, it's Mego style, it's not a Hot Toys or something. But it looks great. It looks like a Christopher Lee Mego Dracula should look. He's got those red bloodshot eyes that Christopher Lee always had as Dracula. He's got a little touch of gray, which is Dracula has. Which movie did he start having the gray? Did he have it in the first film, or did that evolve later? I don't remember. He's got... It looks like his outfit, as opposed to, say, like a Bela Lugosi Universal outfit, which looks different. He's got the red lining, which he did not have, the red cape lining, which he did not have in the first film. You got those big Mego monster hands that they've been using for a lot of characters, big monster hands. I like big monster hands on my action figures. And this suggestion of a coffin behind him. It's a red coffin. And I like how they chose this image well, because it looks like a hammer. Haunted forest. Satanic Rites of Dracula. He gets tangled up in, what is it, a thorn bush or something? I don't know. Like a bush full of thorns. And that's what kills him. Dracula has to die a different way in every Hammer movie. And so that kind of looks like, it's a tree, I guess, but it kind of looks like that bush. So you can see the bloodshot eyes I was talking about. You can see the coffin behind him. I like he's got the white collar and everything else is black. Because if they had been less careful, they would have made him look like like a Bela Universal Dracula costume. But they took care to give it that Christopher Lee look, which is very distinct to that all black. Not a tuxedo. The Universal Dracula has a tuxedo. Hammer Dracula does not have a tuxedo. He's more austere. See, the Universal Dracula is always trying to be elegant, and Hammer Dracula is not elegant. Hammer Dracula is out to get you. Hammer Dracula is here to kill you. He is bad news. He means business. And I always thought that the Christopher Lee Hammer Dracula was a very grown-up kind of a monster. There was nothing innocent about him. He was very scary and ferocious and nightmarish, and He's a scary Dracula. He's got to be the scariest screen Dracula. I mean, you can argue who's the best screen Dracula. I think Bela Lugosi's the best, but I mean, as much as I love Christopher Lee, but Christopher Lee is the scariest. And you could argue maybe Max Schreck, but I've always separated Count Orlok from Nosferatu. I've always separated him from Dracula. He's his own thing, even though I know the movie is based on Dracula and the plot is based on Dracula and it's basically an unauthorized Dracula. I've always considered Count Orlok his own thing, separate from Dracula. So when I'm talking about the best Draculas, I don't usually include any version of Nosferatu. But clearly, Max Schreck is pretty darn scary, but he doesn't have the ferocity of Christopher Lee. Max Schreck is more eerie. You know, Schreck's Orlok is an eerie character. Christopher Lee is just going to tear you apart. He's going to bust down the door and come and get you. He's scary. And he's evil. Christopher Lee's Dracula is always just so evil. I mean, they really he's a very mean monster. There's nothing sympathetic about him. He's very mean, evil, and bleh. He just needs to get staked. Just get rid of him. Bring Peter Cushing in here and take care of this guy. So I'm very pleased with this toy. I don't know how much more you could ask for a Mego style Dracula, Hammer Dracula. And I think I know if, say, NECA had made it, it would look different. I don't know that it would look better. I kind of like this because it looks like a toy. NECA would have made it more detailed, I guess, but maybe it wouldn't look like a toy. This looks like a toy, and I like that. You know, if this had come out in the 70s, it probably would look very similar to what we see here. And I like that. I would sure like to see more Hammer characters. I hope they make Christopher Lee as Frankenstein's creature. I hope they make Christopher Lee's mummy. I hope they do Peter Cushing as Van Helsing and Baron Frankenstein. I hope they do Oliver Reed as the werewolf. And if they can just get just those characters I just named, if they can get those out the door, I think those are the essentials. And then anything else is gravy. But I hope they do the ones I just said. Just Christopher Lee, they got the Dracula, do the Frankenstein monster, do the Mummy, and do Peter Cushing as Baron Frankenstein and Van Helsing, and do Oliver Reed's werewolf. Get those out into the world, and then you can do all kinds of other, the reptile or the Yeti or Captain Kronos or whatever. But get those. I think the ones I just named, those are the essentials. Those are the core that you've got to get out to have a really a definitive Hammer set. And I don't know if they have all those available or not. I don't know if they got Peter Cushing available. I don't know. I don't know if they got Christopher Lee available, or if this is like a kind of a one-of-a-kind. Somehow they finagled it somehow, and we're not going to get a repeat of it. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. I hope they can do all those. I don't know if Hammer is just saying darn the torpedoes in offering these licenses, and maybe all these issues have not been cleared up. I don't know. Maybe Hammer just said, heck with it. Start selling licenses. I don't know what the behind the scenes business situation is, but if they've got the rights to those characters and those actor likenesses, get those out. Get them out fast before something goes wrong, because this is such a historically volatile property where it just never seems to work, it never seems to come together. The rights, if the stars have aligned and they've come together, so now we can finally have these toys. Let's get them out now, fast. Get them out there, because who knows? A year from now, there could be cease and desists coming from different studios or actor estates, or Hammer could say, "Oh, I guess we don't have the rights to the." Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Just get them out. Get them out fast now. Get these into existence now, so we can have a set of Hammer monsters. Don't just dribble out one a year. Just get them all out. Let's get 6 or 8 of them out there in the next year, and then I don't care. Then do what you want. But let's get the essential ones out now, because I want a nice set of official, real, manufactured Hammer Mego style action figures. I've got custom Mego style Hammer figures. I've got a lot of those. In fact, it's just about the only custom stuff I collect. But I want manufactured, squishy head, factory made, licensed Hammer figures, and that's what this is. Wow, there he is. So it's kind of miraculous that it exists finally. It's only about 40 years late, but really we should have seen this in the 70s, but we didn't. But better late than never. It's here now. So I'm happy to have it, and I just want them to get more of these out. Get them out. Get them out there. Let's have some Hammer figures. It's Hammer time. Okay, that's it for this episode. I don't know what else I can say about Mr. Dracula. Count Dracula. Got to give him his title. It's certainly my favorite of the new Megos. Perhaps my favorite of all the Megos so far. I don't know. It could be my favorite of all the new Mego figures from the new incarnation of Mego. Could be my favorite. All right. Thanks a lot. See you next time. Remember, the one who dies with the most toys is dead.